One concept we hear a lot about in the modern United States involves polarization. Polarization, the growing gap, the growing chasm between the American right and the American left, the working class and the wealthy, and women and men, and the young and old, boomers and millennials. And as a millennial myself, and one who has boomer parents and who has struggled, but who has also seen a whole lot of reason to be hopeful, if not even optimistic, about the future, is a lot of us are going through many of the same issues. There is a reality to the notion that men are being left behind in the United States. And I know many women that I hold in high regard would probably scoff at that fairly quickly and be like, right, yeah, you white men are just having it so tough. But the reality is throughout American history, we've never had all white men doing well. It's not like white men are unilaterally oppressing women or owning slaves or anything like that. There's been some, right? There have been some white old men. And I think it's important to acknowledge the struggles that different groups have had, both individually, but also all of us collectively. Because the reality is, white American males, by and large, myself included, struggle a lot more now to support our families, to get married, to have children, to have a single income household. I had to get a master's degree to earn even close to what my dad did with a bachelor's degree back in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s, right? So it was a journey for me to be able to get to a point where I can support my family, and my wife still works to help us pay off debts that we accrued that my parents would not have had. My parents, you talked about how they would work part-time to put themselves through college. That was never an option for me. I couldn't work part-time. I could work full-time and still have to take out student loan debt. So it wasn't an option. And that's how it is for most of us, right? The reality is most white men are struggling in this society, in today's modern America, the same way that many people of color, many women, and other like marginalized groups have struggled for a long time. We white men are a part of that. It's been getting worse for everybody, and we're feeling it too. So it's not just I hear a lot about how, oh, well, white men are disproportionately voting for Trump because they're losing status. Like, no, it's because we can't even have the lives that our fathers and grandfathers were able to provide for their families. But if you vote for Trump, you're just immediately called a racist and a sexist and homophobe and so on. I personally did not vote for Trump, but that doesn't matter. It's still a bad argument. And it's a bad faith argument. Most white men are not just looking to return to the 1950s and 60s before the civil rights movement, when you could spank your wife or beat her openly and keep her at home. There was a lot of social pressure that was placed on women to be effectively second-class citizens and submit to their men in a way that they're not expected to now. And that's a whole separate conversation. I think the death of the American family is a problem, yet also women's liberation was a positive. Like, that's one of the big things that we seem to often miss or gets glazed over in modern American media discourse, is that you can have two things that exist at once that are both true. You can have men are being left behind in the United States, and we still need feminism. You can have we still need racial justice in this country, and sometimes we go too far or put things in place that disproportionately hurts our supposedly egalitarian society. We can have multiple things like this in effect. We can support immigration, but also want it to be done legally. We can support having a strong border and cohesive immigration policy and still not support the actions ICE is taking, like shooting unarmed white women, for example. That's a problem. And you can have these views side by side without being a hypocrite. contrary to what we're often told. We're told often, either directly or indirectly, that we effectively need to choose a side. We need to choose a tribe, if you will. We are left or we are right. We are conservative or we are liberal. We are Democrat or we are Republican. And the reality is, most of us are not either of those things in their totality. We don't need to choose a tribe. We don't need to stick selectively with just one side, regardless of whether or not we agree with them. There is a rational middle for many of these things. There are nuanced answers to many of today's problems. For example, I support a strong border, but I also support healthy immigration rates and immigration programs. We need to fix that. I don't think that building a border wall in and of itself does much of anything. And deporting people by the millions is, in net effect, likely going to hurt us more than it's going to help us, the way that we're currently doing it. Especially just unleashing ICE on the public. That's dangerous, man. It really friggin' is. And the same thing goes for the notion of leaving men behind. Part of the reality of Trump's success with Latino and black and white men is that he has tapped into a working class angst and frustration that Democrats have ignored, and Republicans have ignored for that matter, for a long time, for decades, for many administrations. Trump is good at identifying American anger and riding it all the way, as it turns out in this case, into the White House. And whether or not his solutions are realistic or accurate, or his diagnosis of the problem is actually justified, or just scapegoating another marginalized group, is only part of the picture. The reality is the American family, the American male, the American woman, actually, we're all hurting. American families are objectively more poor in terms of buying power now than we were in even just a handful of decades ago, right? We've been losing ground against productivity and inflation and wage growth for the last 50 years or so. Women were sold a lie decades ago that they can and should take multiple roles in the home, that they should fight for their independence. And to a degree, women's liberation has been helpful for them and improved their conditions. In many other ways, it's made them enslaved to the same system and effectively has pushed them to compete against men, leading to the overall decline of the purchasing power of the American family. It is far from the only thing that is leading and contributing to the decline of the American family. It fundamentally comes down to corporate greed combined with political corruption. Nonetheless, it's true that women entering the workforce in droves over the last half century or so has helped contribute to weakening families. It has led and helped lead to an increase in single motherhood, of single parent homes, and of dual income families that are actually more closely linked to bankruptcies and being closer to the edge of financial ruin because they don't have the backup of a second parent that's able to go to work in case one loses their job or is injured or what have you. You combine this with the push for college that has just inundated American society over the last half century or so, and even though that narrative is changing, the reality is women are getting degrees at a much higher rate than men, and it's helped contribute to men just not doing as well and leaving a lot of the tradesman jobs that they used to do well in, and industrial jobs, they're open, while industry has been offshored and service jobs have increasingly taken over in the American economy. And on top of that, unions have been absolutely just devastated over the last half century, and really since the 1980s, notably after Reagan just kind of dismantled the TSA after that worker strike there. Really broke the bones of, really broke the back, if you will, of unions throughout the United States. It's been a downhill slide ever since then, and it's going to continue to hurt American families and American workers as long as we're not forming unions and we don't change rules around collective bargaining membership. We really do need to change that. The end result is you have men with lower purchasing power and earning power. You have women that have increasingly been expected to pick up the slack and often leading to single parent homes. You have American families that have been suffering. You have the American workforce in general that has been losing against inflation and productivity and has seen a decrease in unionization rates over the last several generations. And the totality is American workers and American families are doing worse than they have for in decades. And we are slowly but surely getting poorer year over year, even if it's just a few percent. That inflation is outpacing the rest of us year over year. It adds up quickly. And if we do not change this, life will be worse for our children and our children's children moving forward. The American economic system and job market as it stands now is rigged against us. That is one area that both Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump have been spot on in. And only by uniting, unifying, understanding we each have our own respective issues, but by and large, we are not each other's problems. Immigrants are not largely American workers' problems. Most women are not a majority of men's problem. A majority of men are not hurting women, and so on and so forth. We actually have far more in common and far more to gain by unifying and uniting around a common understanding that we should be punching up, that it is greed, it is corporate propaganda, it is government corruption, it is decades of being slowly but surely screwed over and having tax laws change and having subsidies added and cuts made to social welfare programs, or the increases that are given are not keeping up with inflation, and the wages that we get are not bargained at the rate that it was in our parents' and grandparents' generation. We have slowly but surely we've been losing position for decades. It was nothing in the American economy today is accidental. It exists because it has been designed this way. Capitalism, as we understand it, does not just exist out in a forest or jungle or swampland somewhere. We create it. And if we want the rules to benefit middle class and working class Americans again, we need to learn from that which worked before, like during the New Deal era of the 1930s through the 1970s. And we need to return to things that worked in the past, fix things that maybe got a little wobbly or stopped working or didn't work as well as we hoped, and keep greed and corruption out of our political sphere to the best of our ability, and with a force that we have rarely brought to bear in American society. It reminds me a lot of a cartoon that I've seen of a wealthy man with a large pile of cookies behind him, and then in front of him is a table. On one side of the table is a working class white man, and on the other side of the table is a working class black man. In between these men on a small table is a plate with about 3 or 4 cookies on it, and the wealthy man with a large pile of cookies behind him is whispering in the white working class man's ear, "Hey, that other guy's looking to take your cookies." That is the reality that we live in the United States today. By and large, immigrants are not our problem. Women being independent is not our problem. Men in and of themselves are falling behind, and this is true. We need to benefit all of us. We need to start fighting for all of us, for any of us to get ahead. We need to unite and stop seeing other marginalized and hurting groups as our greatest enemy, when the reality is it's those atop all of us that are hurting us the most. All that said, I think I've been on my soapbox enough for today. So if you want to hear more about current events and politics and where we're at and where we're going, stick around because we'll definitely be talking about it more.